human being. That's roughly what a human being pees during a year. So just handling that sheer volume of urine is challenging. If containers are not closed, you can have problems with ammonia volatilization. Also when you apply the urine, of course. Pipe clogging, that happens as we have precipitates in the urine. Part of pharmaceuticals and hormones are excreted through the urine. There are some pathogens that can be found in urine. Salt that we ingest will also be found in urine and can be a problem with arid environments. The more social, cultural and institutional aspects like smell, which most people find quite terrible, taboo in many cultures, and the institutional or setting with laws that prohibit large-scale urine recycling in many regions and countries. So these are for sure challenges. Let's see. And these challenges can be addressed in two different contexts. You have the household scale, where urine recycling is quite easy because you, as the urine producer, is also the recycler. You know what urine contains, more or less. You don't have the same prohibitive laws when you recycle for your own purpose and agricultural growth, and you are also the consumer of the product in the end that you grow. So household scale pea recycling is relatively easy for the ones who are motivated. But then on the other hand, the community city scale pea cycling is quite tricky. And on both these levels, entrepreneurs and innovations are developing and have been developed and are being developed to help us overcome these challenges. And there's also a lot of research ongoing. I'll just show some examples on how this pea cycling is going on in different places and with different innovations. So here is an example from Ethiopia, where I've been working. Urine collection with simple jerry can and funnel and potty, or through a very low cost urine diverting slab, which also has low shallow pit between. There's maybe one mic, yeah, that's gone. With some simple storage as treatment, and then application as liquid fertilizer. However, in many times it's both easier, more pleasant, and takes care of quite a few hassles if you recycle urine through composts. And this is also popular with small scale agricultural farmers that I've been in contact with and working with in Ethiopia, Burkina, and Niger, where the urine is piped directly to compost pits. The pile in Niger, I think, received 2 cubic meters of urine and produced great compost.
Linus, you aware of your time?
Yeah. If you move closer to home in Sweden, there's also innovators working on facilitating household recycling, like the golden watering can, guldkannan, where you sit and pee on the actual watering can and then fill up with water and apply to crops. And they have a really nice table for dosage of urine for different crops on their website. So that's in Sweden. In France, there is an interesting company called Fertilizer that produce urinals that you plug into straw bales. They call Urine-recycling, which means urine funnel. And they have mainly targeting festivals and events, and they have been used all over Europe. And they have another version called who needs to mute? Which is a public urinal in some cities in France, where you actually pee on a hidden straw bale that is underneath the urinal, which is changed whenever it's full. So it's quite neat, I think, to catch urine with straw. For ladies, there's a newly developed public urinal in Denmark, that's being used at different events that can store more than a cubic meter of urine before they change the bottom cassette from Lapi. Of course, we have like a bunch of urine diverting toilets, like the interface for collection. But there's one new development that I think is worth mentioning as well in that interface, which is the new urine trap that EOS in Switzerland have been developing, where the urine kind of slides and adheres to the surface of the toilet and slips into a hidden urine separating pipe, which means that there's less issues of pooing in the wrong hole. And
Linus.
Yeah, I'm finishing, sorry. So I'll just finish off with some books and tips for further reading. I think is really nice. Especially mention maybe the Rich Earth Institute in the US, who are producing fantastic guidelines nowadays that complement well the older guidelines that we have had like 10 years back with Ecosandres and SEI and in the Philippines. So that's it for the intro. Just to remind you that most of the liquid gold is in your morning urine. So don't waste that one. It's the most concentrated one. And I think Robert Cossette in France will also show how you can easily use that even inside your house. But before we go to Robert Cossette, if there are any questions for clarification, I can take a quickie. I don't see the chat, Madeleine, but if there are no questions.
Hello, may I ask a question?
Of course.
I found your idea of putting urine into compost fascinating. I just wanted to know how effective is it, please? Because I come from India, and this reuse of urine in rural households, there is a great stigma. There is a great stigma, and I'm not able to get anybody to reuse anything. So if we can have it going into a compost, it's a great idea. So I wanted to know in which countries has it been done? Because I can sort of promote it, saying that it's been done in other countries. And how effective is it? How does it speed up? Do you have any quantitative indicators on how the compost can be speeded up if there is urine in it?
Yeah, it's my own preferred way to reuse urine in the farm which I co-own with some friends. We also mainly recycle the urine through carbon-rich material. And I think it's a fantastic combination. If you have a carbon-rich material and urine, it's a very good marriage. And you also
just dry stuff, just all the leaves and can we have wet vegetable peels and things also in the compost, or does the compost have to be very, very dry? The carbon stuff.
I think there is still potential to do research on this, but as the urine is highly concentrated in, or is rich in nitrogen, it's good to have a more of a carbon-based substrate like straw, or like they have in France with the straw bales.
Okay.
I think it's really nice. Maybe there are others with experience who can chip in. I know that
we can save this for the later half.
Yeah.
And let's go on with the presentations. Yeah.
But I think it's a heads up for those research institutes out there to look more into urine composting. So I'll stop sharing now, and we can have further discussion after the other presentations. And let's welcome Robert Cossette from France.
Hello, everybody. You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'll share a screen. and I'll start my presentation. So do you have the presentation now?
Not yet.
Not yet. Start the presentation. I like using the proper thing. Is it working now?
Yeah,
It's coming.
Yes.
Okay.
Great.
So my name is Cossette. I will present to you the optimized application of fertilizing urine. It's a method that I've developed because I'm the inventor of the solar dripper. It's a watering system for plants. So I was first interested by urine fertilizing after reading some publication like the famous report from SEI and World Health Organization report and Raluca's reference book. So the urine has a great value for plants, and it can be applied more precisely using the ORIAZ solar dripper. So the ORIAZ solar dripper is a watering device. I have one example here. So it consists of two plastic parts plus a bottle. So there's an insertion cone that goes into the ground and permits the water to go deep into the root. Regulator post that screws on the bottle, and the bottle that we filled 3/4 to have air in the bottle. So as you can see, we install this in a plant just like this. In my office, and it waters plants automatically. The watering zone is more centralized into the root system. So it is very interesting for applying urine because you don't apply anything on the leaves. So compared to watering can or surface dripper, the distribution is preferable. The solar dripper has also a really interesting characteristic is to synchronize the watering rate to the evapotranspiration. So the needs of the plants and the watering rate is synchronized. It permits to have a better oxygenation of the ground. So a better oxygenation for those who have studied the transformation of urine into fertilizer is quite interesting because it permits favorable development of nitrifying microorganisms. So everything takes place into the ground and not on the surface. There is no contact, and it even reduces odors and losses. A key characteristic of the solar dripper is to be clogging free. We can use the solar dripper with unfiltered water, rainwater, river water. I don't even use screen to filter the water I'm using in our test garden. So even if there are large particles of over 2 millimeters and biofilms, those don't create any problem. So it's a key feature for using urine because it tends to clog. So how do we apply urine? It's so simple. To collect urine, I just use juice bowls like this, and I pee directly into it. I don't even use a diversion toilet or anything like this. So I collect urine and I mix it in the bottle to obtain dilution that is appropriate for the amount of urine I want to apply and to the need of the plant. And the advantage is that it is scentless. This is the first corn I grew 4 years ago. So at the beginning, I was like everyone, a bit worried about others and taboo, and but it turned out that the growth of my my corn was just magnificent. And when I tasted it, it was better, or at least as good as any previous production I had. So it's a fantastic gain for rivers, for water saving, and even for greenhouses gas that we can save with this solution. I tried it then in the office, so I was proud to show it. I even put a sign on the bowl, and the result was just perfect. It flows as regular water, and the plant flowered after 6 days. It didn't smell bad at all. And the good news about odor is that fresh urine is scentless. It starts having a bad odor after a few days, let's say a week or two. And if you use fresh urine, there's no odor. So I tried this in our test garden. This is a lasagna garden I created last year during the first start of the pandemic. So I can apply on each bottle a very precise amount of urine that is used in this case for 4 corn plants. It worked perfectly well. We could see the growth very well. But the most amazing result I had was with tomatoes. In our test garden, I planted 12 tomato plants, and I started fertilizing them with urine, and I also used the ORIAZ from Vuna in Switzerland, the concentrate, and everything worked perfectly well. I was amazed about the quantity of tomato and the quality of the tomato. And because I'm selling this product in retail stores in Switzerland and in France, I brought my tomatoes that I grew with my own urine, and I had posters showing it is a solution with urine fertilizer, and I made people taste the tomatoes in Migros stores in Switzerland, at the World Water Week in Stockholm, in many events. So people were amazed to taste those tomatoes and find that they taste very well. So this is the amazing conclusion of my test. It's not only a good fertilizer, but it ends up producing sweeter tomatoes and with more vitamins. And there's a study that I found made in Finland at the University of Kuopio, and they mentioned that they have measured the amount of vitamin, and that was better with urine than with commercial fertilizer. That is very interesting. So we are all producers of excellent fertilizer without knowing it, from father to son, from a long time ago. So I measured the Brix level of the sugar content of my tomato, and it reached up to 12.2 Brix degrees, which is very, very sweet. And it ends up that my tomatoes were much sweeter than tomato bought from organic stores. Even the best organic tomatoes I could buy were not as sweet as my tomatoes. So the process is very simple. We just have to dilute fresh produced urine without transformation. And if you do it on a daily basis with your daily production, you won't get any odor because it starts without odor. You apply it without odor, and it will be used in your in the ground, and it won't generate odor. You just have to rinse your bowl after each time you empty it, you rinse it. So the application rate, I'm using up to 25% on the occasional application and up from 2 to 5% on a regular application. The average urine content, I'm using the reference from Renaud Deleuze, who published his book available in French and in German. So you can refer to those numbers, which are average, and they make sense. And they were confirmed also by the Richard Institute from a measurement made in the Vermont University a couple of years ago. So they both have calculated the same average content.
Robert, are you thinking of you coming to closer to an end? Yes?
Yes, I am.
Good, perfect.
Don't worry. So the measurement method is well, first you collect urine. You can collect fresh urine directly. For a man, you can use it. You can feed directly in the bottle. For women, we can use a funnel or other device. And we measure the content of urine by weight or by volume because it's easy. The volume is 1.01 density. And we can even use, now in the garden, I'm using a drench gun like this. It's a device that will measure an amount of urine very precisely and with a clean application, so you don't touch anything. So our product, this is the end of my presentation. We are selling a new product. So we already have our commercial lines of product made essentially for holidays and watering plants when you're not at home. But I'm introducing at the same price the product with a guide to use urine. And this is the product we are starting to sell, and with a guide that shows precisely how to do the thing. So this is what we sell for €5 for people to introduce themselves to urine application. And we sell also kits that are available. If you want to contact us and order those kits, they are available, even with the drench gun. So
okay.
The innovation.
Thanks, Robert. That was really interesting. Tools to enable enthusiasts to overcome to start urine recycling, and in a very clever way. Do we have some questions in the chat, I think?
Yeah.
One was about the acceptability of the end user, of the consumer of your tomatoes, for example. You have some info on that?
I did it without asking permission. I asked permission at the Migros store, for example, in Switzerland, in Geneva. And people were tasting the tomatoes, knowing that is fertilized with urine. And because the technique is so safe, it's not a tricky thing that really can bring disease. The application is perfectly concentrated into the ground. So there's no chances urine will touch a tomato with this system. So it's very, very safe. And the filtration from our body, from our kidney, and from the ground, and from the root of the plants that don't take large molecules, it's very, very safe. And it's much safer to use urine from human than use manure from pigs. So the farm animals have more medication and more a worse diet than we do have humans. So our urine is a top quality fertilizer. That's the conclusion I have.
It also seems clever to avoid any ammonia volatilization when you get it into the ground like that. So it's nice. There was another question on, are they compatible with normal plastic bottles, like your average PET bottle of Coca-Cola?
Yes, they are. And the best bottles are in Germany. They are they have reusable bottles in Munich, for example. And I'm using some of those bottles. Unfortunately, they are not available in France. But if you use thick bottles with rigid bottles that are 80 grams compared to single-use bottles of about 30 grams, they are stiffer and they are the best.
Okay. I just another question is how fast do they empty? Can you use like one of these drippers for many plants?
Yes. The duration depends on the weather exposure. So indoor, it lasts about a month, but outdoor, it lasts 2 to 5 days or 10 days maximum. So it's much faster outdoor. And outdoor, I used to apply 2 to 3 times a week when it is in the growing season.
So basically, you would like to have one of the drippers per plant in the growth season.
Yes, yes, or even 2 drippers for large plants. Okay. Like those sunflowers, we put 3 drippers per plant because they are 3 meter high.
Okay, thanks a lot. I think we will move on to the next present, which is Jenna Senecal from Sanitation 360, addressing the challenge of urine volume and logistics to simplify a larger scale urine recycling. So let's see if you can share, Jenna, if you made it onto the your Wi-Fi.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. So due to some misfortunate morning events, I'm on my phone and I have a 3-year-old and I'm in a bathroom.
Fantastic.
So the purpose was to be in the bathroom because I want to present to you a system that we've been installing, but if there's any background noise or interruptions, I apologize in advance.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so I'm a postdoc at the Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences, where we've been developing a system to convert urine into a solid fertilizer. And the reason why we do that is each one of us is generating 1 to 3 liters per day. So if you think just the city of Stockholm, which is just over 1 million people, if we want to scale up the reuse of urine, we have to figure out how to manage over 1 million liters of urine a day. And as we only apply fertilizer generally in the agricultural sector, especially in Sweden where we have winters, we only apply fertilizer 1 to 3 times a year. So how to store all that urine over time until we can actually use it as a fertilizer. So that's where we got thinking as to trying to dry the urine into a solid fertilizer, much as like what we use in conventional farming equipment. However, the challenge is that during the drying process, we can lose nitrogen. All other minerals, they remain in the solution and in the end product, but the nitrogen, it can change into a compound called ammonia, and then that's volatile. So what we did was we figured out a way to stabilize the nitrogen, and we do this by increasing the pH to above 10. So my initial studies, we looked at using wood ash, which is a common byproduct in Sweden. So basically, we were drying the urine in the wood ash, and during that process, the pH would remain above 10, and we're able to keep all the nutrients. So we're able to go from 1 liter to 50, or 1 kilogram to 50 grams. So we can decrease it by that much. And that worked really well also for the drying process. But then we saw that the urine was drying very effectively. And in Sweden, this could work because we have a lot of ash. We use it for heating. The wood industry is a big part of our industry, but for the rest of the world, it doesn't work. So we started looking at other alkaline media, so other things that have a high pH that we could use to stabilize the urine. And we've published various papers looking at calcium hydroxide, otherwise known as lime, magnesium oxide, and potassium oxide. And we're still going through different recipes to see which one would be the best. And so that was the main focus of my research. And we saw that there was a huge interest because we can actually convert the liquid into a solid. And so it's easier to store, easier to transport and apply. But if we wanted to see this turned into reality or to scale up, we saw that we needed to have a company because no one else was going to invest into this to get it going. So that's why we started a company, Sanitation 360. And we've been working with different implementation projects. So I'm standing in southern Sweden now at the drinking water and wastewater utilities, VA-Syd, and they've invested a lot into helping us put in our first demo product. So I'm going to flip the screen around so you can see our system. So we have here, hi darling, we have here is the toilet that was designed by EOS and manufactured by Loffen. It's the new urine diverting toilet that you can't actually tell that it's a urine diverting toilet. And so it's really great for public toilets because it doesn't have the front bowl anymore that often got feces or toilet paper stuck in it. Instead, it uses surface tension and the urine curves around and gets collected. And so then the urine is collected directly underneath where we have our media that brings the pH up to above 10. And then we have fans and heaters that are going through and drying the urine. And what is exciting about this setup is that we don't need to put in new piping for it to retrofit this building to have urine diverting toilet, because the urine is treated right there. So it's still a one pipe system, and we're just connected to the regular ventilation system. And one of the things that we're looking at now is we see that the system works for individual toilets, but it's not the most energy efficient. So now we're looking at designing a system that can work both in a basement, as in Sweden and Denmark, we have quite a few housing units with more than 10 toilets connected, and they already collect the urine in the basement, and they're finding it challenging to get it to the field. So we're looking at scaling up the system so that we can also make it more energy efficient. And we're also making a portable system that I can pull with the back of my car in a small trailer so that I can go collect the urine from events such as weddings or concerts. So last week I collected over 1,000 liters of urine just in a couple of days from some urinals that then I can show up with my truck or with my car and the trailer and treat it. And we see that that's quite an exciting concept as well for the global south, with areas that already have urine diverting toilets and door-to-door collection, but it's expensive to transport the liquid. So here we can have the solar-driven system. And then one of the questions that we get quite often is around the reuse of the fertilizer. And basically the fertilizer comes out as a dried powder that we're looking to pelletize so it can be used in traditional farming equipment. And this summer we did successfully use it in traditional farming equipment, which was quite exciting. And the growth trials went really well. We'll have more detailed analysis on that later. But the question we get quite often is about pharmaceuticals. And there's been a lot of studies coming out of Sweden showing that there's actually a higher risk for human consumption in Stockholm if we just let the pharmaceuticals be as they are and go to the wastewater treatment plant and come out with the effluent, because they're such stable compounds and they're not easily removed, compared to if we were reusing our excreta as a fertilizer, then very little comes up into the plants. And so we'd have to consume potatoes or carrots every single day for 5,000 years to get a single dose. Wow. Yeah. So, and that was for the most resilient pharmaceutical. The others, it was 20,000 years. So for a human risk perspective, it's a lot better to put our waste on the fields than to have it going to the wastewater treatment plant. And by diverting the urine right away at the source and not mixing it with the rest of our wastewater, we're taking out up to 80% of our compounds, of the plant compounds. So it makes the wastewater treatment plant's job of removing the phosphorus and nitrogen a lot easier. But we're also removing maybe 60% of the pharmaceuticals. The amount that's excreted in the urine really varies based on the different type of pharmaceutical that comes out. Yeah, you can play with those. Zip ties. And so, but saying that, the addition of anything to the fields does change the flora or the microbial flora of a field. So even applying nitrogen fertilizer, any kind of fertilizer, we're altering the flora there. And so by adding urine with pharmaceuticals in it, there's potential for us to be changing the flora there as well. So we have a PhD student at the Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences who's looking at how to remove the pharmaceuticals during the drying process so that we can provide a clean fertilizer. And with that, we also hope that if we can show that we have a clean fertilizer, that maybe we can, this is my big dream, get back to being certified organic so that it makes it an even more attractive fertilizer. And then we can also sell it for a higher price. I'd love to chat more, but I'm reaching my 10 minutes. So I'll stop there and let the others present as well.
Thank you very, very much, Jenna. That was an awesome interactive live presentation from your toilet. Really, really cool. Inspiring. And that researchers take the step into the real world to try to actually implement their findings is also cool. At the same time as you have kids, I know that's not easy. Anyone who wants to ask Jenna something about the system of Sanitation 360 and urine drying? I see that there's people saying wonderful presentation, cool presentation, and wow. Any other question?
I would just like to make one comment, if I may. All presentations were wonderful. This is more anecdotal because what Jenna says is so important. I was many years back on a plane, an Israeli gentleman was sitting next to me and he uses the EcoSan toilets, and he said his dog also used to pee in the same place where the urine was collected. His dog had a tumor, and then the lemon tree which they had planted over the urine collection and all, it grew to have lemons the size of grapefruit. And this was all they didn't know. So you see, that is why I want to ask Robert also, and I think more research is necessary as when people are sick, when people with cancer pee, or they are taking medication, how does that go into the urine and how will it affect the flora that is being grown? So they had to basically wait till the lemons became normal again before touching the lemons on the tree, which was nourished by the urine. That's all I wanted to say, that this is I've always, yeah.
If I can give part of the answer, the growth of the vegetable were because of the apply nitrogen and the filtration from the ground, from the surface of the roots by osmosis, and by the kidney makes the residue to disappear or not be interested in the plant. So
okay,
don't worry.
I don't know.
That's it. That's what. Since that story, I've been worried about this. So
yeah, I know it's a hot topic with pharmaceuticals. I don't know if anyone else want to chip in on that. We can also save that for the discussion later, because we have one question here. How does the mobile unit look like or work? Is that a toilet or is it a treatment station, mobile treatment station, or was it a toilet, or both?
It's a mobile treatment system. So how it worked the last 2 weeks was that we had urinals set up at an event, and then I would just arrive with my car and pump it out directly. And the dryer isn't set up right now. I'm still missing a few parts, so that will start in September. But that's the idea, that you just show up and you can open up the solar panels and have the drying happening there, or you can take it away and drive to the next site to collect more. And the size of the trailer, it's just kind of 2 cubic meters. And so it's small enough that you can pull with a regular car.
It's only using solar energy for drying.
That's the plan. Yeah, we're still setting up the dryer. So in the summertime, in the Swedish context, we should have enough solar energy. In the wintertime in Sweden, we probably won't have enough energy.
The last question was how many people can use the toilet you're sitting on now? What's the capacity before it overflows? Or
this toilet is designed to treat 6 to 10 liters a day, and it has a valve and a level sensor. So when the level gets too high, then the valve that lets the urine in closes, and then if there are more users that day, then it goes with the flush water and the toilet paper.
Okay, great. There's someone who also wants to have more info about the drying process. I think we can get that later as well. And let's thank you, Jenna, and go to Mosan and Raluca. If you can share your screen.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? All
Very
right.
well.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. I will share my screen. So seeing my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you everybody for being here. It's such an honor to present to this group and maybe get your inputs about our operations and our urine treatment, because we are currently working on developing it. So I'm talking on behalf of Mosan, which is a circular sanitation solution in Guatemala. I'm going to start by giving you a brief context about where do we operate, the low income settings and so on, and then we're going to go to the toilet design, collection, and urine treatment. So Guatemala, it's one of the most populous countries in Central America, with about 16 million people. And out of this, around 6 million people don't have access to safe sanitation. And this is more prominent in the rural areas, where more than 90% of the population is not connected to a sewage, so there's no wastewater treatment. And this is the area, this is the photo from close to this is the village actually where the Mosan has its permanent service for 3 years now. It's called Santa Catarina Palopo, next to Lake Atitlan. Lake Atitlan, it's a very nice volcanic, one of the deepest lakes in Central America. In the same time, it's also a closed watershed. So this means that there is very little outflow out of it, and all the pollution and the waste that go inside, it leads to eutrophication. It's a long-term process, but we know that that has started. And the sanitation situation doesn't help, which is more than 50% of the population uses a form of latrine. It's either a dry or, depending on water availability, can be also a flush latrine. And 24% of the sewage, 24% of people have access to a sewage, but only 20% of the wastewater that gets there, it's actually treated, because the treatment plants are they're operating over their capacity limit, and also they are not up to the standards on local regulation and national regulation. So there are lots of challenges. In general, the area is urbanizing. So it's a rural urbanized area with densely populated settlements. House terrain is mostly lacking. There is a lot, since the lake is surrounded by volcanoes, there is a lot of volcanic rock. So the ground is it's very porous and stone-like, which with high water level, which makes it difficult to create on-site sanitation, especially next to the lake that doesn't pollute and doesn't affect the groundwater quality. So this is where Mosan comes in, because Mosan, it's a container-based sanitation, and it's a closed, it's a circular system. So we do everything from the toilet design, which I'm going to show you later, which is in-house. Everything is done by us. And then collection system, transport system, the transformation, which currently it's pyrolysis for feces and precipitation to create struvite for urine. And then we want to reuse these resources and use them in the agriculture to recover the nutrients and close the cycle. So we are as much as a sanitation provider as a agricultural company, or how do you want to call it? So if we would want only to give sanitation to people, we could also connect to the wastewater treatment or find a way to safely discharge it. But we really aim to close this nutrient cycle. So that's why we're putting a lot of work on that. And yeah, for now we create biochar from the feces, and our the way we want to develop is enriching this biochar, which is of course with urine, because we have this very high nutrient resource that we're collecting all the time. So we want to use that. So I mean, Jenna spoke before, and she talks about the volume and all the issues, challenges that I'm going to explain also later. So this is Mosan in a nutshell.
Raluca, there is some noise from your mic. Maybe if you just touch it a little bit. Yeah, thanks. Maybe it's
okay.
Better now.
Is it better? Yeah.
It's still a little bit of a noise, but go on. It's okay.
Okay. I hope you can understand it.
Much better now. Much better now.
Great. So these are some pictures illustrating the same. So it is a replicable, the technologies are relatively low cost because we want to expand to many communities. We want to make it cost efficient, sustainable, modular, that the transformation is not centralized. It's not like we're covering a large region and then we have transportation to this center. We want to have a transformation center in each community. And we're talking about communities from 200 families to 1,000 families, or covering part of villages. It doesn't have, because so often you have villages that have part of it are connected to sewage, part of it they have some space so they can do on-site sanitation, but there's always areas of the village that are neglected and communities. So this is what we target. And as you can see, it is in the middle, it's the toilet. Everything is centered on the toilet, but it is a system in the end. So we have a collection service, we have pyrolysis transformation, and now we're developing this organic fertilizer with urine enrichment. And a big part of what we do is also awareness creation and participation, because we want it to be a community-led system. Everything is operated and managed by the community, and that's why we have a lot of participatory workshops and approaches so that we make the community feel like they are part of the solution. It's not just a solution that is given to them. And this create ownership and empowerment and so on. So we have this educational side that we spend a lot of time on because we think it's very important. So this is the toilet. So the concept of the toilet started being developed by Mona, which is the founder of the enterprise, in 2010 through different iterations in Bangladesh. So the first prototype came with a research that she did in Bangladesh in a flood-prone area. So this is where the whole mobile dry toilet concept came, because there was lots of water. It's easy for the container to be able to be moved easily. But then we understood that these challenges are everywhere. It's not only in the flood prone area, it's also in the water depleted area, and where groundwater is not safe, or the ground or the land is steep, like in Guatemala. So the design is with two containers, urine diversion. And as you can see, so here is a toilet seat and the urine goes through the red valve. This is a design that ensures that there are no odors, because the urine, the red valve lets urine come in, and when there's nothing coming, then it kind of sticks. So there's no odor coming out, and there's no also evaporation, because the urine container only has the small outlet here that lets the valve come in, but there's not an exposure to outside air. And these containers are, so this is a household toilet. The customer has it inside the house and puts it wherever they want. And the containers are constantly exchanged we have a collection service 2 times per week. This is the collection service. So our operation is, the collection happens normally in the recollection centers, where the customer comes with the containers, as you can see in the photo, and we have our operational staff that gives in exchange fresh and clean containers. And the exchange happens 2 times per week. And also here it's where all the payments happen, all the client relationship is built. So in general, we think of this punto de recolección, as it's in Spanish. It's not only an exchange place, it's also, it's at the heart of the system, because as it is a community-led system, here is where Mosan have us, we have the most visibility, we can do marketing, we have educational events, and so here is where everything comes together. So it's a get-together space for the community, the Mosan community. And the transportation, as of now, where we operate, it's done on push carts because there are no access roads for cars, and this happens very often in the context we operate, but we also have seen potential with motorized vehicles where this permits, because it would definitely gain some efficiency there. And as a transformation, we have the urine processing via precipitation into struvite as of now, and the feces processing via pyrolysis into biochar, which I guess many of you know what biochar is. It's basically, we have the feces with the sawdust burned at around 400 degrees with no oxygen, which this slowly carbonizes it. And it's a porous sponge-like material that increases microbial activity if used in soil and water retention. So it has lots of benefits for the structure of the soil. And since it's we're using it with feces, there is also some nutrients, there is some phosphorus inside, but the nutrient level is not that high to be used as a fertilizer. So that's why we're thinking of enriching it. To briefly explain the urine process as of now, which is the process that we installed around 2 years ago, it was the best fit that we saw at that moment because we didn't have capacity to invest a lot in it. So it's not definitely the final stage that we want it to be. That's why we're doing research actually with Jenna and her technology. But as of now, so what we do, the containers are collected and then poured into a bigger barrel. This is the barrel A that you see in here, which is stored for around 1 to 2 months under the sun to be sanitized and also practically as a storing place. Then we're adding the magnesium oxide, and there is a manual mixing for 30 minutes, which followed by a couple of hours sedimentation. Then this is pumped through in another barrel, which is filled with different filter layers and goes through fabric. And this is where on the fabric with the struvite is collected, and then it's dried in the sun for a couple of days. And then you get the struvite and you can powderize it. It's first, it's kind of a blocks, it breaks, but you can make it a powder. And then the filtered urine, depleted of phosphor, because struvite is mainly phosphorus, goes through this filter layer, which are sand, gravel, different materials, activated charcoal as well, which is then stored for another month in a barrel, and then goes through another filter in the ground, infiltrates to a similar kind of filter that we have above ground. We have one also underground. So this is our current setup. So maybe it's worth saying that we have a customer base of about 40 families. So we have more or less 600 liters of urine per week. This process is very manual, so we don't think that we can scale it up as it is right now. So that's why we're looking in other technologies. And it's also that the struvite, it has lots of phosphorus. It's not a complete fertilizer, so it cannot be, it has no nitrogen, so it's not complete on its own. And the filtering process, I mean, ideally, we know when we first did this research on this setup, it was in collaboration with the MAGA, which is the Ministry of Agriculture of Guatemala, which they were interested in the system. And evaporation through plants was also, it's normally recommended through the vetiver or hydrilla. These are the two plants that we did experiments with. But the problem is that it takes a lot of space and it needs also a lot of water in combination. You cannot put the plant simply in urine. It would oversaturate very rapidly. So that's why there are some challenges, because we don't have so much terrain. So there are lots of practical, operational, and also economical and financial feasibility challenges with this setup. So now we're happy that we are in this project with the ETH Vivamos Mejor. ETH is a university in Switzerland. You know, it's part of the a development program, and Vivamos Mejor is an NGO operating in Guatemala for encouraging sustainable agriculture. And we want to, as part of this research grant, we want to do organic fertilizer based on biochar. So of course, we're looking at urine, but we're looking also at IMO or bokashi or compost tea or compost. So I'm really happy to have inputs on, you know, how to do these blends and so on. Of course, we're going to look for something locally feasible. And then we're gonna test it on maize, which is the cultural, the
Raluca,
usual
you
crop.
are closing up soon?
Yes. One more slide and I'm done.
Okay.
So we're gonna do some field trials on vegetables in the greenhouse, and then also on maize, which is a cultural traditional crop in here, which uses lots of fertilizer, synthetic fertilizer. So we would be happy to find another alternative. And also some participatory field trials to make sure that we involve the farmers early on, and we do this knowledge transfer and innovation from the start. So this is where I can show some photos. It's just at the beginning of our work with Jenna. So we're looking at her technology because, and the research at the university, because it looks like a great fit. It manages to capture the nitrogen, and also it uses an alkaline medium, and we have the biochar. We still have to add some alkaline mass like magnesium oxide or lime and so on, but it seems like a great fit for us. We're thinking of probably building a solar natural convection solar dryer to increase the airflow, but for now we're just trying to learn what the conditions are and how the materials behave. So we have a very basic box-based system to try to dehydrate and see what we get out of it. And yeah, so here we are, but I'm gonna keep you posted. This is a 18-month project, but in the first 6 months, we're gonna do most of the fertilizer development. So we're gonna do lots of research. So we're happy to have your input if you have any advice. So this is where you can follow us and keep updated with our news. Thank you so much.
Thanks a million, Raluca, for that wonderful presentation of getting into the real world and really trying to push the limits of what we of developing an excellent sanitation solutions. Then we are past 10, but we still have people connected. I don't think we have lost that many. So I think as we're all urine aficionados, we can continue discussing, and there were a couple of questions for Raluca in the chat. One was the attitudes towards human excreta as a fertilizer in Guatemala. Do you have any insights into that? Is there a lot of resistance?
Yeah, so we actually did some interviews and some market studies end of last year. And there doesn't seem to be a very big stigma around it, because the farmers have been using the sludge from the pit latrines, drying it in the sun. So culturally, this is a practice that is not very strange to them, using fecal matter to fertilize the fields. And since it is paralyzed, it looks more like a char. It doesn't have the consistency, it doesn't have the smell. So what is important for them is that there is no smell of feces per se, and then that the texture is right. So they wouldn't like something like powdery, because then this flies off. It's much more difficult to apply it. They like granulated texture, which is the same as the synthetic fertilizer that you find on the market. So I think if it's efficient, if the nutrient level is right, this is what they look at when they buy a fertilizer. So the origin of the material didn't seem to be a big issue.
Okay, thanks. Another question is, any cover material on the fecal matter in the toilet? Do they have to add something?
Yes, we're always adding sawdust. So our clients, they're advised to always add sawdust. It's for the smell, and also for the pyrolysis. Like any dry toilet, yeah, it needs a cover material.
The next question was on the cost of the toilet. If you have a rough idea, if one wants to buy it, is it available in the market?
Well, yes. So the thing is, this is a system. It's right. It's not a toilet that we're selling. I mean, we're thinking of other business models, maybe in camping and so on, of other opportunities, seizing other opportunities. But we had lots of times this question, but it's risky to sell a toilet because they don't know what they're going to do with it. So we normally like to implement the CEST system and sell it as a service, not as a toilet. Yeah.
So someone in South Africa who asked the question cannot buy it at the moment?
No, we don't sell it. I mean, we're happy to start cooperation and implementing a service or any kind of research you have in mind. We're happy to look at that. But
Well, I was thinking of the urine part in the toilet. What happens when it overflows? Do you have that problem? Like the urine container?
No. So because we normally take care, we do the collection two times per week. And yeah, we have families. It depends from family. Some families have more family members, and then we know that there is more in there, and we start the collection with those families. But it's quite often, so there was never the case that it overflows. And if families feel like, oh, it's so close to overflowing, then they tell us, and we can change the collection date and so on. So it's still highly customizable for now because it's quite small scale. Yeah.
Okay. There is one question about magnesium oxide. I appreciate your activities and solutions. Magnesium oxide does not dissolve easily in urine. How did you manage the treatment?
Yes. So this is a thing that we are discovering now with the alkaline dehydration. So for the struvite precipitation, we do a mixing of 30 minutes and then it settles, the phosphorus settles. And then in the final struvite, of course, you're gonna have some magnesium, which is not dissolved, but that's not a problem because then everything goes to the filterings and so on. But for example, for the alkaline dehydration, where we want the magnesium oxide to really dissolve in the urine in order to increase the pH, we have problems because it needs mixing, and normally we add it in the container, and we cannot tell the client to open it and mix it sometimes. And now we're looking at other alkaline media, and yeah, part of the project with Jenna, she's also researching some other materials that maybe are much more soluble, but yeah, that's a problem.
Okay, thanks. And then from Shaima, there was a question on stigma from the workers to transport the fecal matter. Is there any stigma? Are they exposed to others' negative views?
Well, we're making sure to adhere to the highest hygiene standards and so on. So we may have protective equipment or like disinfectant and all the materials so that their work is safe. And in general, we had this question from our investors in Switzerland as well about having people doing this job, but it's not seen that bad, I would say, because everybody has different kind of like jobs, and they don't necessarily identify with, yeah, it's just a job. Everybody, yeah. I mean, it depends from people to people, for person to person, but it's not so easy to find an employee that it's advocating for it. But when you find it, it's really a topic that people can be enthusiastic about, because especially around the lake, which is such a touristic area, and it's such an obvious problem that you cannot bathe in the lake. It's such a beautiful place, but you cannot bathe because it's full of E. coli, or you're gonna immediately get skin irritation. So people understand it. So you have this awareness slowly building up, but of course, yeah, there are so many steps, but yeah, it is possible. Yeah.
Thanks. I see Björn has some addition on the magnesium oxide. I don't know if you want to explain, Björn.
Yeah, I just short comment on it. I mean, it's the intention to have a low solubility of the magnesium, just to not consume that much chemicals to keep the cost down. So it's sort of a balance, both for, I mean, if you want to produce struvite, but also in the system where like Jenna presented, where we want to have a high pH above 10, and then the solubility is enough to reach a pH above 10. But at the same time, we just use 1/5 of magnesium oxide compared to the need for using lime, because it has such a higher solubility. So we reach a pH of 10.5, 10 to 10.5 compared to 12.5 when you use lime.
Yeah. So we didn't manage to get actually to a pH of 10 when using magnesium oxide in the containers, because I think it needs the mixing. So this is what is lacking, and it's a problem like operationally for us. Yeah.
Is it also a problem if the urine is already stored if you want to increase the pH, then you already have the ammonia?
With stored urine, you have the ammonia, and then I mean it's no point of increasing the pH if you don't want to evaporate the ammonia.
So in the case of Mosan, they would need to add it before they hand out the containers. Like
yeah, or it depends. I mean, the system they use now is to produce struvite, and then I mean, then you would want to have the ammonia also. So, but you can only capture around 5% of the ammonia or the nitrogen in the urine with producing struvite.
Yes.
But for drying, you would need that addition directly in the toilet.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, I think you have one more question from Kurdish or something like Kurdish. There was one more question. A hand raised. Yeah.
Okay, please go ahead.
Okay, maybe not.
Because I don't see the hands.
Now people use their hands which disappear. It's difficult. But if you want to ask, please write in the chat. Use the chat as much as possible.
So then, for the moment, I think there are no other questions. But if there is another question, please either shout it out or write in the chat. Otherwise, we can call it a day. I think we could upload, I mean, the presentations will be available on the Susanna website, but we could also create an entry into the forum with this session and the links to presentation through the forum, and any discussions or questions related to the presentations could be further discussed in the forum, I think. I can take on that responsibility. Here we have Dorothy has a question. What is the range of capacity for the dehydration process? Do you want to expand on that question, Dorothy? And who is it for, Jenna?
Yes, it's for Jenna, yeah. Just to know, to understand what would be the size of the tank and what would be the scale of application, if it's possible from a single household to several communities, for not the mobile system, but the one they're testing in the utility. So would it work for a toilet, for a household for 4 people or 5 people, for instance, or
exactly.
Would it need, yeah.
Yeah, so what you saw, it works for a family of 4 to 6 people. And the wall that you saw sticking out, that can be integrated into a new building, say, that's being put up. Then that wall can be integrated directly into the wall so that you don't have that extra space being taken up. We are working on trying to I know my little one has lost patience, but we are working on trying to on a new design as well that will hopefully be more energy efficient. So this system here was our first prototype, and the next one will be a new beta system to see if we can improve on the size and on the energy consumption. But what you saw was for 4 to 6 people.
Thanks a lot. I may contact you later on because I just installed 2 of these Laufen toilets and another new prototype from EOS, which is not yet on the market yet, but which I tried to test in Zurich. And I'm exploring now different possibilities to treat the urine, but we have basically a tank in a basement of a building where there's quite a lot of space. Yeah, so I may reach out to you. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Dorothy, for that input. Don't think we have more questions at the moment. I want to thank the super presenters, Jenna, Raluca, and Robert, sorry, Cossette, and Madeleine for timekeeping, and the Sunday Secretariat, of course, and all you who attended the full 1 hour and 20 minutes. So we'll see you online in the Susanna Forum probably, and wish you a really good day with full of urine development ahead of us. Ciao, ciao.
Yeah. Thank you, Linus.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.